Meet Andrew about 2 years ago at a dinner in Washington, D.C. He gave a speech and he just mesmerized the entire crowd, just as I know that he will mesmerize you. As Jeff indicated, I grew up in the Yesler Terrace Housing Project, which was public housing. We lived there for about 4 or 5 years until my dad was able to build a house on Beacon Hill, where the family home is still there. But it was public housing for returning World War II vets, as well as students at the University of Washington. My grandfather came to the United States in the late 1800s and worked as a servant for a family in the state capital. He was from China, went back to China, got married, had a family where my father was born, came back to the United States and back to Seattle and worked as a chef at Virginia Mason Hospital. And it was Doc Mason who told my grandfather, you should go back to China and bring your entire family over. So Grandpa did that and brought my dad over when he was about 12 or 13 years old. And then just before the outbreak of World War II, Dad volunteered for the United States Army, was part of the Normandy invasion, part of the Battle of the Bulge, and the blitz to Berlin to try to beat the Russians to Berlin. And after the war was over, he went to Hong Kong, met my mom, and got married and brought her over, and we were all born. And I say all of this because when I was sworn in as governor in 1997, I said that here I am moving into the governor's mansion, exactly 1 mile from the house where my grandfather swept floors and washed dishes as a servant boy. And I said that here we are, moving into the governor's mansion, and it's taken our family 100 years to go 1 mile. And I said that this is the story of not just our family, but the story of every American. Except for the Native Americans, we are all foreigners. Whether we're first generation or 10th generation, whether our ancestors came on the Mayflower, on a slave ship, or on a boat from China, we are all foreigners to this country, and we are a land of immigrants. And it is that diversity of people, of cultures, of languages, of religions, and perspectives that makes America great. And it's that constant renewal, that enrichment of our spirit that has enabled us to be the most innovative country in the world. That diversity, celebration of diversity, what makes America truly great, is under attack with President Trump. When you see all the moral lapses, the ethical lapses, the disregard for our own history and what America stands for, when you see that he's putting personal politics over foreign relations, and dismantling all the progress that we have made under both Republican and Democratic presidents over the last several years. We need a person who can stand up to him, who can demonstrate care for each and every one of us, and that's what Andrew stands for. A successful entrepreneur. He understands the challenges of the future. You know, McKinsey says that in about 10 years, 5 to 10% of the entire world's workforce will be displaced because of AI and robotics. Now that means that the people who are 40 years old today, 10 years from now, may not have a job. We could say the new economy is going to create all these new jobs, but are we going to say that the person who's 50, 55 years old is going to go back to college for a course in coding? No, we need a person in the White House who's anticipating this, envisioning these problems based on his background, who will give us assurances, a program that gives us hope and optimism. And that's why this candidacy by Andrew is so exciting. So exciting. He's got novel ideas. He's going to stand up to the president, and it's great to have all of you here supporting his candidacy and urging him on. And for all the Asian Americans here, we cannot be more proud to have an Asian American, a person of color, finally on the presidential stage. Thank you very much, Andrew, for
I cannot believe I just got introduced by Gary Lund. Give him a round of applause. Such a hero and role model. I remember as a young Asian American looking up and seeing you as governor, as secretary, in the cabinet. I thought, wow, that's incredible. And now to be introduced by you, it's such an honor and privilege. I feel like the torch is being handed off to me, and I know exactly what to do with it, Gary. Right, Seattle, it's a pleasure and privilege to be here. I have to say that Seattle is one of the first cities that really embraced me in the campaign. And that's in large part because of people like Hetty Young, and Jeff, and Grace, and Carrie, and John. And I'm missing a couple. Eric and Susie. It's people like you that have really made this campaign possible and made it take flight. When I started this campaign, no one was exactly knocking down Andrew Yang's door saying you should run for president. The literal response was, president of what? I mean, my email list was literally my Gmail contacts. Like, so, well, I'll be like, hey, I'm running for president. Send money here. Well, that was 2 long years ago, around the same time that Yang and I met. And I stand before you. Today, a poll just came out. I'm 5th in the polls to become president of the United States. And I'm flying straight from here to Los Angeles, where I'll be on the national debate stage as the lone person of color. And I will be candid that one of the reasons I decided to run for president was I imagined what my being on that debate stage would mean to the Asian American community. Imagining myself, because I grew up in this country in the 70s and 80s, and anytime there was an Asian American on TV, I would jump up and down excitedly and I would yell to my brother and mom, look, look, it's an Asian on TV. It was almost always Connie Chung. But then imagining what someone tuning in would look at. I remember reading about how small black children, when they came of age and then Barack Obama stopped being president, they were like, you mean he's not always president? They came of age just assuming that, like, he's president, he's black, and that's the way it always is. It gives me a lot of pride thinking about Asian American children turning on the TV, seeing me on the debate stage and assume that Asian Americans always run for president. And that was one of my goals when I embarked on this journey, and I'm very happy to say that that has come true for the 6th time on Thursday. But just like a good son of immigrants, I'm getting greedy. Where the better you do, the more you see the goal in sight. This field is very, very fluid. Anyone who looks at the numbers sees that the buy-in for any of the 4 frontrunners is very, very low. A majority of candidates say they could change their minds. Majority of voters say they could change their minds. A majority of candidates, that'd be funny. I'll wake up and be like, I'm not sure about this running for president. A majority of voters say they could change their minds. Even people that say they're committed to a particular candidate say, like, I'm still not sure. I just came from a bus tour in Iowa, and I can verify that it is still way up in the air. That people are still figuring out where they're going to put their vote. And people say this reminds them of the most fluid field in 14 years or so, 16 years. 2003, John Kerry was at 4% in December, and he went on to win, and someone looked and said, this is just like that field. So we are growing when other candidates are frankly pulling back or even dropping out. We raised $10 million in the last quarter in increments of only $30 each. So this is a very cheap, wholesome gang to join. Our fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's, a lot of them. That's not you all. You all are like $30. That's up significantly more. I must be a well above average member of the gang. Which you all really are. And I am not going to break any news with this. We're going to raise significantly more in Q4 than we raised in Q3. So again, we're growing when other candidates are pulling back, and we have a very clear message. And the message is still somehow unique in this field, where we are laser focused on solving the problems that got Donald Trump elected in the first place. Now, if you turn on cable news, why would you think Donald Trump's our president today?
Email.
Russia.